Welcome to the AUA News Inside Tract podcast. Today's Inside Tract podcast is part of the Voices series, which is brought to you by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Here we'll be joined in conversation with committee members, AUA members, and urologists from around the world to discuss how to build a strong, vibrant, and diverse urological community.
Thank you for listening to Voices. I am Dr. Asafu-Adjei. I currently serve as Director of Male Reproductive Medicine for the Department of Urology at Loyola Medicine in Maywood, Illinois. And I'm happy to join you with Dr. Kymora Scotland, endourologist and Assistant Professor of Urology at UCLA Health. Today, we are talking about the AUA Urology Scientific Meeting and Research Training Academy, also known as the USMART Academy. Dr. Scotland, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And Happy New Year to all. I think it's probably be good for us to maybe start off discussing what this academy entails. I think you and I were both part of the initial groups of this, and it has really bloomed since then. Do you want to give the audience a little preview as to what USMART is?
Sure. So USMART is really an academy that the AUA put together. And the aim of USMART is to give mentorship to folks who are early career investigators and who are sort of trying to get to the point where they get their first big career development grants, that sort of thing. And so typically it's for folks who are outside of the training portion of their urologic career and are just sort of starting their careers in academia and are trying to determine what their areas will be or trying to find funding for the projects that they want to complete.
And I think, and I'm sure probably both have like so many examples of positive experiences with it, but I think, just as Dr. Scotland mentioned, I was in my, first year of practice when I joined the USMART Academy. My mentor was Dr. Ranjit Ramasamy, and it was so impactful for me. I think there are just so many things you don't realize that you have to navigate, especially as an academic urologist, and to just have someone really in your corner giving you guidance and very specific advice to navigate those waters was extremely helpful. And I still have a very, close relationship, keeping him as my mentor, although not in the official USMART capacity. But I know that I found the most benefit kind of navigating my research track and even kind of organizing my clinical time as well.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I think, the USMART program is set up with some structure, but allows you to really make of it what you would like. And so for your circumstance, you did a lot of talking about clinical as well as research. For me, my mentor was Dr. Peggy Pearl, endourologist extraordinaire. And a lot of what we talked about really had to do with what my plans were for my research career. But I think, just having that person to bounce ideas off of and whom you can contact. One of the things that the USMART program tries to encourage is meeting with your mentor at least a few times in the year that you're in the program on a more or less routine basis. So I think, again, it's what you make of it. I met with my mentor, I think about 3 or maybe 4 times. I know there are some people who meet more, some people who meet less, but having that person who is really a luminary in the field and who's gone before and has had successes and who's able to take some time to chat with you about your plans and helping you, as you said, navigate some of those early career decisions you have to make is invaluable.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting that I think even within our cohort, when we're sharing our experiences, I think, as you mentioned, although there was some structure, it's so interesting to see how all of the different relationships evolve. So I think you had some that were really research focused. I know there were some other participants that they were just trying to see how do these, big time research academicians manage just even like personal life in addition to their careers. So I think it was just really interesting, the variety of relationships and really what we all drew from it, right, in terms of benefit. And I think I drew a lot from the other participants as well. I mean, I think we also formed like a group of, what are you thinking about? Or like, what's, keeping you up at night? And so it was just kind of interesting to recalibrate a bit when engaging with the other participants. So what do you think is the biggest piece of advice that you garnered from your mentor during your time as a USMART mentee?
Time management. I think those of us who are just starting our careers have lots of questions that we want answered and lots of studies that we want to get started right away. And I think it's important to benefit from that experience, right? So folks who have been in urology for several years, sometimes several decades, are able to tell you, well, these are the questions that I think are probably the most important ones to focus on for various reasons. And so that's helpful in terms of research. But she also helped me in terms of how I was going to really schedule my time. Being able to run my own lab and do clinical research and take care of patients, you have to sort of make decisions about how much time you're going to spend on each thing. And talking to her and getting a sense of how she was able to juggle things was very helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely have to reiterate the time management piece. I would say one of the things I really learned from Dr. Ramasamy, who's also a very prolific researcher and clinician, was just a concept of when you're starting off, you can't take on City Hall. And so I think you kind of think about what are the low-hanging fruit pieces that I can take care of now. How does that build you up to then take on, bigger things? I think as someone who definitely kind of goes in with, we're going to do everything now. I think as you're navigating, especially in a new, hospital, academic system, it was really important to think about what are digestible things that you can actually accomplish. And yes, you may have some of these other goals in mind, but they may not have to happen right now. Or even just thinking about all the smaller pieces you have to lay first before you can kind of move forward. And so I think that was something that was really important for me. So that I wouldn't get discouraged early on and just recognize like, hey, this person had the same challenges at this point in my career, and seeing someone setup who is 5-10 years ahead of you is very different, right? But everyone started from somewhere, so that was really important for me to appreciate.
Yes, agreed. And I think one of the things about the program is there are mentors at various stages of their careers. And so you've got folks who are at the associate level, you've got folks who are at the full professor level. So you can really benefit from a wide range. And now, while you have one mentor, I think one of the things that we come to realize as young folks who are trying to, make a difference in urology is that all of these folks are really very invested in the field and in the field progressing and in people who are able to do research, being able to do research. So, being able to have access to all of the mentors, if need be, for their expertise is super helpful.
Right. I totally agree. And wanted to pick your brain about why programs like this are critical when we're thinking about diversifying the urology, pipeline, so to speak, and even for other, underrepresented groups within urology, and, how USMART really helps that.
Well, I'll start by saying that USMART is helpful for anybody who is trying to do research or juggle an academic career.
Yeah.
I think particularly for folks who are not traditionally represented in medicine, and that could be because of various types of minoritized groups, right? That it's helpful to see different roadmaps for how that's done. Okay, so those of us who don't have any family members or friends or folks that we can sort of lean on or look to get a sense of how they made it work, it's helpful to have those mentors who you can talk to about certain questions. I think, for instance, with Dr. Pearl, she's one of the first women in urology. Right? Certainly one of the first women who has been really prominent in not just in endourology, really in urology in general. And so it was helpful to chat with her about how she chose opportunities, whether and how she was given opportunities, and how she was able to take advantage of the things that, came to her. And so those conversations were really helpful. I think for those of us who are, for whatever reason, underrepresented in this area in academics, it's nice to get to talking to other people who are in the same boat and, having peer mentorship, as it were. And when you've got this cohort of people who are all sort of trying to do the same things, it's very, very helpful to have those conversations in that mind frame, as compared to talking to folks who are well-intentioned but may not necessarily be looking to do the same sorts of things that you're doing and may not necessarily have the experiences that will help you to get there.
Right. Yeah, no, all excellent point. Couldn't agree more. I mean, I think really amplifying the diversity of mentorships and mentors that we had at USMART was really impactful. As you mentioned already, people were in different stages of their careers, different subspecialties, also from different underrepresented, groups within, urology. And I think that really added to just the flavors of things that we were able to see and, gauge advice from, because everyone does have different experiences. But I think with all of the successful mentors we had, it was really, really helpful to see everyone's path wasn't quite the same and challenging in different ways. And I think the diversity of experiences as well was really, important. I certainly feel fortunate for being part of, I think, the first cohort of USMART, mentees, because I do think that it really kind of set my trajectory off in a different way if I didn't have that guidance.
So I think one of the things that has happened over the few years that USMART has been in existence is that they've really been able to hone in on what's been helpful to the mentees. And I think they've been able to calibrate what the program looks like. So, it'll be exciting to see how things are in 5 years.
Yeah.
But I certainly think that they've been able to expand the number of mentees, the folks who are mentors. And so they're making it, much more appealing, I think, to a wider range of folks, right? It's not just basic science folks. It's really anybody who wants to be involved in academics and who wants to be involved in, propelling urology.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more. Well, I think we have probably covered most of what we wanted to talk about today. So this has been a wonderful time. Always a pleasure talking with not only my colleague and dear friend, Dr. Scotland, and I'm happy to continue following, alongside all the wonderful things we're hoping to do in urology as USMART ambassadors.
Fantastic. Same here. Happy New Year, everyone.
This has been Voices, an AUA News Inside Track podcast, and is brought to you by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. For more information about the AUA's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, visit auanet.org/diversity.